The townspeople thought the butcher's shop smelled odd that summer. No one imagined the stench was coming from the crawl space beneath their feet. The year was 1977, and the town of Coldwater, Michigan had always been a place where people left their doors unlocked, where children rode their bikes until dusk, and where a new babysitter was just a phone call away. But that was before the disappearances began. It started with Kelly Jensen, a 16-year-old girl with freckles and an easy smile, who vanished while babysitting for the Miller family. The Millers returned home just after midnight to find their house eerily quiet. The baby was asleep in the crib, but Kelly was gone. Her purse sat untouched on the kitchen counter, a cold cup of coffee beside it. The front door was unlocked, yet nothing was stolen. The police were baffled. No signs of a struggle, no forced entry, no footprints in the yard. It was as if Kelly had simply ceased to exist. But 2 days later, the second girl vanished. Jessica Talbot, 17, disappeared while babysitting for another family across town. Just like Kelly, she left behind no clues, no signs of distress. Only an unfinished glass of water on the coffee table and a half-written note on the fridge reminding the parents to buy milk. Panic spread to the town like wildfire. Who was taking the girls? And why was nothing out of place except for the eerie emptiness they left behind? The investigation begins. Sheriff Robert Halloway had never seen anything like it. In his 22 years on the force, runaways left footprints. Kidnappings left broken locks and shattered glass. But this was something else. The only clue, if you could call it that, came from 7-year-old Ben Miller, the child Kelly had been watching that night. When asked if he had seen or heard anything, he hesitated, his small fingers gripping his mother's sleeve. Finally, he whispered, "The man in the mirror." A shiver ran through the room. "What man, sweetie?" his mother pressed. Ben frowned, as if frustrated that the grown-ups didn't understand. The one Kelly was talking to before she went away. "But, Ben, there was no man in the house," his mother said gently. The boy just shook his head. "He was in the mirror." The sheriff dismissed the child's words as an overactive imagination until he visited the Miller home himself. Inside Kelly's temporary bedroom, a large antique mirror stood in the corner. It had been in the family for decades, a hand-me-down from a relative long gone. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but as Sheriff Halloway turned to leave, something caught his eye. There, on the inside of the mirror's glass, were tiny handprints, pressed into the surface as though someone had been reaching out from the other side. And that's when the sheriff noticed something even more terrifying. The handprints weren't there the first time he looked. Sheriff Robert Halloway stared at the mirror, his breath hitching in his throat. The handprints hadn't been there before. He was sure of it. A cold unease crept down his spine. Had someone else been in the room? Or worse, had something else been in the room? He turned sharply, scanning the small bedroom, his heartbeat thudding in his ears. The closet door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness yawning from within. With one hand resting on his holstered gun, he stepped forward and pulled the door open. Empty, just hanging clothes and the faint scent of lavender. Sheriff Halloway exhaled and turned back to the mirror. He lifted a gloved hand and pressed it against the tiny, ghostly fingerprints. Cold, the prints weren't on the surface. They were inside the glass. Back at the station, the sheriff ordered his men to re-examine every piece of evidence. If there were prints in the mirror, could they belong to Kelly? But just as they were gathering their notes, a frantic call came in from the town's mortuary. "Sheriff, we have a problem. A big one." Halloway grabbed his coat and rushed to the morgue, expecting some clerical mistake. But it was much worse than that. Kelly Jensen's body, the one they had found in the woods just that morning, was gone. The coroner, a pale and trembling man named Dr. Lee, led him to the empty gurney. "I don't understand," he stammered. "She was here, right here. We logged her, bagged her, and now she's missing?" Halloway growled. "Bodies don't just walk away. Document." The coroner lifted shaking hands and pointed at the steel tray where Kelly's remains had once been. Something lay there. A single piece of paper, folded neatly. Halloway hesitated, then reached for it. His stomach lurched when he saw what was scrawled across the page. It was a letter, written in Kelly's handwriting, but dated the day after her death. He's watching. I should never have looked in the mirror. I should never have spoken his name. The sheriff locked down the station, ordering his men to triple-check every detail. But something wasn't adding up. The Millers swore that the front door had been locked when they returned home. But Ben's older sister, who had been sleeping upstairs, insisted she heard whispers in the house that night. "I thought it was just Kelly on the phone," she said softly. But when I peeked downstairs, she was standing by the mirror, whispering. Except she wasn't holding a phone. Who was she talking to? Holloway asked. The girl shook her head. "I don't know, but I swear I heard a man's voice answer back." Holloway frowned. Kelly's parents had said their daughter never had a boyfriend. No strange men had been seen near the house. So who, or what, had she been speaking to? The media caught wind of the missing corpse and the eerie letter within hours. Headlines screamed, "The babysitter who spoke to the dead. Kelly Jensen's ghost leaves a message from beyond." Who's next? The town was spiraling into hysteria. Parents refused to hire babysitters. Young women slept with their doors locked. And then came the phone call. It was late at night when Holloway's office phone rang. He rubbed his exhausted face and picked up. The line was silent. Then a voice, low, rasping, almost playful, whispered 3 words. "You're looking wrong." A chill shot through him. Who is this? Silence. Then the voice, closer now, almost breathing into his ear, spoke again. "Start digging under the old oak tree." And just like that, the line went dead. Sheriff Robert Holloway stood beneath the twisted branches of the old oak tree, the phone call still echoing in his head. "Start digging." His men hesitated, shovels poised over the damp earth, waiting for the order. Holloway took a deep breath. Dig. The first few inches of dirt turned up nothing but tangled roots and damp leaves. But then, thud, the metal shovel hit something solid. Holloway's heart pounded as he knelt and brushed away the soil with his gloved hands. A wooden box. Old, warped with age. One of the officers pulled it free and pried it open. A horrible stench hit them immediately. Something rotten. Inside was a pile of children's toys, a porcelain doll missing its eyes, a rusty harmonica, a small teddy bear with one arm torn off. And then at the very bottom, a lock of hair. Not just hair, but fresh strand of blonde hair, neatly tied with a red ribbon. Holloway staggered back. Kelly Jensen had blonde hair, but she'd been found dead already. Had she? As the department struggled to process the grisly find, a new witness came forward. An elderly woman, Mrs. Abernathy, had lived in the neighborhood for over 50 years. She was frail, but her eyes were sharp. "I saw her that night," she whispered. "Kelly." Holloway leaned forward. "You saw her? In the Miller house?" Mrs. Abernathy shook her head. "No. After." A chill settled over the room. "What do you mean, after?" The old woman licked her lips nervously. "I don't know what I saw, but around midnight I heard footsteps outside my window. When I looked out," her voice wavered. "There she was, Kelly, standing in the street, staring at my house." Holloway frowned. "That's impossible. The coroner confirmed she was dead hours earlier." Mrs. Abernathy's eyes glistened. "I know what I saw. She was barefoot, soaking wet, and her lips were moving." The sheriff's throat went dry. "Moving?" The old woman nodded. She was whispering to something in the dark. If Kelly had truly been seen after she was declared dead, then either the coroner had made a terrible mistake, or someone had deliberately staged her death. And the deeper they dug into Kelly's last known interactions, the more inconsistencies appeared. Her best friend, Emily Harris, had given a tearful statement about the last time she saw Kelly alive. She was babysitting that night. She texted me around 9 p.m. saying the kids were in bed. I told her I'd see her at school the next day, but she never showed up. Holloway narrowed his eyes. "Are you sure that was Kelly texting you?" Emily paused. "I assume so. Who else would it be?" But Kelly's phone was never found. And now, with her body missing, the letter and the witness citing, nothing about her death made sense anymore. Had Kelly been a victim? Or was she something else entirely? As the town's fear intensified, a shocking setback hit the investigation. The coroner, Dr. Lee, was found dead, an apparent suicide, they said, but Holloway didn't buy it. His office had been ransacked. Files were missing. And on his desk, a single piece of paper written in a shaky hand. She's not dead. I saw her eyes open. I heard her laugh. Suddenly, the babysitter case wasn't just an investigation. It was a nightmare with no exit. Determined to find answers, Holloway returned to the Miller house. Something was still off about the crime scene. He ordered his men to search the basement, which had been previously dismissed as unimportant. But as they moved aside old furniture and tore up the floorboards, they found a hidden compartment. Holloway's got twisted. Inside was a small wooden box. He reached in with trembling fingers and opened it. Inside were trophies. Kelly's school ID, a silver locket with her initials, and at the very bottom, a baby tooth, too small, too recent to have belonged to Kelly. Something far older was at play here. Holloway stood up, dread sinking into his bones. A creak sounded behind him. He turned just in time to see something move in the shadows. A figure, tall, grinning, inhumanly thin, watching him from the darkness. And then the lights went out. The last thing Sheriff Holloway saw before the lights went out was the grinning figure in the darkness. Then blackness. His pulse pounded as he reached for his gun, but before his fingers even brushed the holster, a breath on his neck. Something was behind him. A whisper slithered through the pitch-black basement. "Too late, Sheriff." Then a hand, clawed, cold, on his shoulder. And suddenly, the lights flickered back on. The basement was empty. The hidden compartment? Gone, as if it had never been there at all. Holloway stumbled upstairs, breathless, his skin crawling. He knew what he saw, but when he tried to explain, his deputies exchanged worried glances. The Miller house was now a crime scene swarmed by officers. The coroner's death had shaken the town, and now, hysteria spread like wildfire. Parents kept their children inside. News crews camped outside the police station. Conspiracy theorists claimed it was a satanic ritual, that the babysitter killer wasn't just a person, but something inhuman. And worst of all, someone had been watching. That night, the police got a break. A man was arrested, Joseph Calloway, a former teacher who had been obsessed with the case for years. Inside his house, they found disturbing evidence. Photos of Kelly Jensen, candids, some taken before her death, some taken after. Clippings of past babysitter murders, dating back decades. A blood-stained notebook filled with childlike drawings of smiling figures. When they pulled him in for questioning, Calloway only smiled. "You think I did this," he murmured. Holloway slammed his fists on the table. "We found your collection. The photographs. The notebook." Calloway chuckled. Low. "Hollow. You don't get it, do you?" He leaned forward. "I wasn't watching them." Holloway stiffened. Calloway's smile widened. "They were watching me." The town thought it was over. The babysitter killer was caught. But that night, a new crime scene, a new family, a new babysitter, all slaughtered in the exact same way as Kelly. And written on the bedroom mirror in smeared red, "You found the wrong one." The town of Brookhaven breathed a sigh of relief. The babysitter killer was behind bars. Joseph Calloway had been charged with 6 counts of murder. His disturbing collection of photographs, clippings, and blood-stained drawings had been enough to convince the jury. The courtroom was packed the day the verdict was announced. Guilty. The families wept. The media erupted. And for the first time in years, the town slept without fear. With the case seemingly closed, Brookhaven transformed. Parents installed multiple locks on their doors. Curfews were strictly enforced. Babysitting became a dying job. No one dared answer an ad anymore. Kids whispered urban legends about the babysitter killer, embellishing the story until he became a faceless entity lurking in the dark. Local officials capitalized on the hysteria. A new law, the Brookhaven Babysitter Protection Act, was passed, requiring background checks for all child care workers. The police chief stood on the courthouse steps, addressing the town. We got our monster. This nightmare is over. But behind the scenes, the doubts were already creeping in, unease in the shadows. Sheriff Holloway should have felt relieved. Instead, he couldn't sleep. There were things that didn't add up. Calloway's alibi for one of the murders had been flimsy, but not impossible. His fingerprints weren't on all the crime scenes, and his reaction to his arrest still haunted Holloway. You don't get it, do you? Holloway kept seeing his face, that unsettling smile, the way he had whispered, "They were watching me." Then came the reports. The prison guards claimed strange things were happening. Calloway wouldn't sleep. He stayed awake for days, watching the cell door. He complained of whispers at night, coming from vents. He begged for extra lights in his cell, refusing to sit in darkness. Then, one morning, they found him dead, his body twisted in an unnatural position, his eyes wide open, his fingernails torn like he had been clawing at something, and carved into the wall of his cell. You found the wrong one, the forgotten document. The case was closed, but Holloway's obsession only deepened. He spent nights digging to the courthouse archives, searching for anything that had been overlooked. And then he found it, a forgotten document, a signed confession. Every gruesome detail of the Babysitter Killer's crimes, the method, the messages, even the missing trophies, signed by a name no one recognized, dated 5 years before the murders ever happened. Holloway's hands shook as he stared at the paper. The courthouse lights flickered, and suddenly, from the dimly lit corner of the archive room, a whisper, "Too late, Sheriff." Brookhaven was supposed to be safe. With Joseph Calloway dead, the town had moved on. The news stations had moved on. Even Sheriff Holloway had tried to move on, until the call came. "Sheriff, it's happening again." Holloway's blood ran cold. A babysitter was missing. 18-year-old Emily Rhodes had been babysitting for the Carter family on the anniversary of Calloway's conviction. At 8:45 p.m., she had texted her friend, "I swear I just heard something outside. Super creepy." At 8:57 p.m., she sent another, "Okay, that was weird. I think someone is in the backyard." At 9:02 p.m., she sent her final message, "OMG, someone is in the house. Call the..." The text cut off mid-sentence. When the Carters returned home, they found the front door wide open. Emily was gone. The only clue? Her phone, lying on the living room floor. Screen cracked, camera app still open. The last image it captured? A shadowy figure standing in the hallway. A chilling connection. Holloway and his deputies swarmed the house, searching for answers. Then they found it. A message, scrawled in red on the nursery wall. "Miss me?" Holloway staggered back. It was the exact same handwriting from Calloway's old crime scenes. But Calloway was dead. Was this a copycat? Or had the town been hunting the wrong monster all along? The sinister photograph. Emily's disappearance sent shockwaves through Brookhaven. The media descended on the town once again. Theories spread like wildfire. A cult? A second killer? A supernatural curse? But one piece of evidence changed everything. While combing through the forgotten courthouse files, Holloway found an old, burned photograph. A group of children playing in a backyard. One of them circled in red ink. A child with hollow eyes. A name was scribbled beneath it. Joseph Calloway. But then Holloway noticed something else. Standing in the background, barely visible, a tall, shadowy figure. It had no face. Just a wide, empty smile, and underneath it, in handwriting that matched the recent crime scene, a chilling message. "You always blame the wrong one." Holloway laid out all the case files. The original Babysitter Killer murders. The clues no one had noticed. The dates of the killings. Then he saw it. A pattern. The murders weren't random. They were happening on a cycle. A list had been forming. And Emily Rhodes was just the next name. There was another name on the list, and that person only had 24 hours left. Holloway grabbed his coat and raced to his car. The next victim was out there, completely unaware, and somewhere in the darkness, the real Babysitter Killer was watching. Brookhaven was unraveling. Emily Rhodes was still missing. The town that once celebrated the end of the Babysitter Killer was now drowning in fear once more. Houses locked up before sunset. Parents pulled their children from school. No one answered the door after dark, because if Joseph Calloway was dead, then who was still hunting them? Sheriff Halloway didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not when another lead had surfaced. Emily's phone records revealed an unknown call, made 1 hour before her disappearance. It came from an abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of town, a place tied to another unsolved crime. Halloway arrived at the farmhouse alone. The structure loomed in the moonlight, its windows gaping like hollow eyes. Inside, the air was damp and suffocating. Dust-covered furniture, rotten floorboards. But something felt wrong. Then he saw it. A chair in the center of the room, Emily's sweater draped over it, and beneath it, a recording device, still playing. Halloway pressed play. A girl's voice, shaking, crying. "Emily, please, I just want to go home." Then another voice, deep, hollow. "Home? No, 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 you were chosen, just like the others." Static. Then, "They never caught him. They never caught me." Halloway's heart stopped. Joseph Calloway had always acted alone. So who the hell was this? Back at the station, Halloway dug into old case files. A case from 1981 stood out. A babysitter murdered in Brookhaven. A full decade before Calloway's first crime. Same M.O., same signature, same writing on the wall. But something was different. The original suspect had never been caught, and his name had been scratched out in the report, like someone had tried to erase him. Halloway's hands shook as he dialed a forensic lab, pulled Calloway's old confession, compare the handwriting to the newest crime scene. An hour later, the call came back. "Sheriff, they don't match." Halloway nearly dropped the phone. "What are you saying?" Calloway didn't write that message. "Then who did?" Silence. Then, in a whisper, "Whoever did has been doing this for a very long time." Halloway walked to his patrol car, his mind racing. But when he reached it, he froze. A note was tucked beneath the windshield wiper, carefully folded, written in the same chilling handwriting. With trembling hands, he opened it. For words, "You're next, Sheriff H." His blood ran cold, because only one other person had ever called him Sheriff H. Joseph Calloway. But Calloway was dead, wasn't he? Sheriff Halloway wasn't alone anymore. FBI agent Dana Whitmore had joined the case. Her theory? The babysitter murders were bigger than anyone realized. "This isn't just one man's work," she told him. Calloway was a piece of something much larger. And then, the worst part, he had help from the beginning. That meant one thing. Whoever was still out there was watching them. Halloway and Whitmore combed through the archives, searching for anything they'd missed. And then they found it. An old crime scene photo from 1981. The very first babysitter murder. A message had been scrawled in blood on the wall. The first of many. A familiar phrase. The same phrase found at Emily's crime scene. The kicker? That message had never been released to the public. Only the original killer would know it. Which meant, whoever took Emily was the same man from 1981. The killer's game. That night, Whitmore's phone buzzed. A blocked number. She answered. Agent Whitmore, a deep voice rasped. "You're so close. But you're looking in the wrong place." Then a low chuckle. "Why don't you check your partner's house?" The line went dead. The trap is set. Halloway's heart pounded as he pulled up to his own home. The front door was ajar. Inside, his belongings were untouched, except for one thing, a cassette tape, labeled for Halloway. He shoved it into an old recorder. Static. Then, "Sheriff H. You always thought it was over, didn't you?" Calloway was easy to pin it on. He liked the attention. "But you never caught us. And now it's your turn to babysit." Then Emily's voice, sobbing, begging, "Please help me." The tape cut out, and beneath it, a single address was written in red ink. An abandoned church outside of town. The final confrontation. Halloway and Whitmore arrived in silence. Guns drawn. heart pounding. The church doors creaked open. Inside, candles flickered. A chair in the center. Emily, blindfolded, gagged, still breathing, but standing behind her. A man in a mask. He clapped slowly. Took you long enough. Holloway raised his gun. Let her go. The man laughed. Then he pulled off his mask. Holloway's stomach dropped, because standing before him was his old police captain. You never questioned why Calloway always knew what to say, the captain sneered. We fed him the stories. We made him the monster. Holloway's grip tightened on his gun. Why? Because fear is power. Then a sound behind them. More footsteps. Whitmore spun around. 5 figures stepped from the shadows, all wearing the same mask. The captain grinned. You thought you caught us. You have no idea how many of us there are. The church was a battleground of chaos and blood. Sheriff Holloway and FBI agent Whitmore stood in the candlelit horror, surrounded by masked figures, the true masterminds behind the babysitter murders. Emily sobbed, blindfolded, tied to the chair. The former police captain, the man who had orchestrated decades of terror, smiled calmly at them. You think you can stop us, he sneered. Then the lights cut out. Gunfire erupted in the darkness. Screams. A body hitting the floor. Then silence. When the lights flickered back on, only 3 people remained standing. Holloway, Whitmore, and Emily. The masked figures? Gone. And the captain? Dead. A knife buried deep in his throat. A final gift from his own people. Holloway slumped to his knees, blood trickling from a graze on his arm. Whitmore stood frozen, still holding her gun, her hands trembling. Emily sobbed into his shoulder, alive, but forever broken. The babysitter killers were real. A cult, hiding in plain sight, operating for decades. And now they had vanished into the night. The media exploded. Secret cult behind Michigan's most terrifying murders. Cop-turned-serial killer mastermind exposed. The babysitter murders weren't just a legend. They were a movement. But one question haunted them all. Where did the others go? The FBI issued arrest warrants for unknown suspects. Anonymous tips flooded in. But no one was ever found. The remaining mass killers had disappeared, as if they had never existed. They had been waiting for this moment. And just like that, they melted into the shadows. Calloway, the scapegoat, had been executed years before. The captain was dead. The bodies left behind would answer no questions. So the case? Officially closed. But to Holloway and Whitmore, it was far from over. Holloway couldn't sleep. Every night, he saw the masks, the captain's knowing smirk, the faces of the people who got away. Whitmore quit the FBI. Emily refused to speak to the media. She moved away, her nightmares following her across state lines. The babysitter murders had taken their final victims, but not in the way people expected. The survivors weren't lucky. They were cursed. Months later, a package arrived for Holloway. No return address. Inside, a cassette tape, labeled, "Play Me Alone." He hesitated, then pressed play. Static. Then a voice he knew too well. The police captain. You thought killing me would end it? You thought you understood what we are? You only scratched the surface. We have always been watching. We always will be. And one day, you'll see just how deep this goes. Then a laugh, low, mocking, and one last whisper. We're not gone, Sheriff. Just waiting. Click. The tape ended. That same night, alarms blared inside the maximum security prison an hour away. One of the original babysitter suspects, a man convicted of an unrelated crime but long suspected to be part of the cult, was missing. His cell was empty. His door still locked from the inside. The security footage? Glitched out. No guard saw anything. No alarms were tripped. He was just gone. And on the wall, scratched into the concrete, the first of many, Holloway stared at the message. His stomach turned. The babysitter killers hadn't vanished. They were waiting. For what? No one knew. But one thing was certain. This was never the end. it was only the beginning. Years passed. The town changed. The babysitter murders became a cautionary tale, a boogeyman story parents whispered to their children. Lock your doors. Don't trust strangers. And never, ever answer the phone after midnight. The case was officially closed. But was it ever truly solved? Documentaries, podcasts, and YouTube channels dug deep into the mystery. Some said the babysitter killers were a cult of wealthy elites, still operating in the shadows. Others believed the truth was even worse, a cover-up so deep we were never meant to know the full story. The more people investigated, the more questions they uncovered. Who was really behind it all? The police captain died, but he was just one piece of the puzzle. Where did the masked figures go? No bodies, no arrests. They simply vanished. What did the final message mean? The first of many? Was it a warning, a prophecy, or something even darker? And the biggest question of all, was the babysitter killer ever caught? In the years that followed, new murders surfaced. Families slain, doors locked from the inside, mirrors covered in handprints, a trail of blood leading nowhere, and every time on the walls the same message: we never left. Some say, if you walk through the old neighborhood at night, you can still hear the faint sound of a lullaby on the wind. Some say, if you stand outside the abandoned police station, you can hear a phone ringing. Others say, he never really left at all. Was the babysitter killer caught? Or are they still out there waiting? Let me know in the comments. And if you love terrifying true crime stories like this one, be sure to check out my other videos. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Because some cases, they never die.